So for those of you who have been on this channel for a while and been following me, you know already that I am a huge history fan, particularly Civil War history, but you may not know that I really also like the Battle of Midway. And a movie came out this past week called Midway, and I'm going to talk about that on my next conservative take. Hi, my name is Kyle, and if you are unfamiliar with the way I do my movie reviews, please click this link right here, and it will let you know everything you need to know about how I do things. And as always, I will leave a note below saying spoiler warning in case you do not want to know anything about this film. So Midway is a movie that essentially chronicles the expansion of Japan from the early 30s all the way to the Battle of Midway, which culminates into a surprise attack on the island of Midway. It started off with Pearl Harbor, going into the Doolittle Raid, going into the Coral Sea Battle, and going into that conflict, which is the name of the movie. And so you have to understand a little bit about what's going on in terms of history, because the movie does not give much time for exposition. Not at all. So it expects you to kind of come in here knowing what's going on, what the motivations are, what the tactics are of that era, because dive bombing versus torpedoing, what does that mean and how does it play into the decision making of the movie? So it doesn't do a good job at that, but the narration is very well done. If you want a really good timeline movie, I would say go check out the 1976 version with Charlton Heston. It's a long movie, but it gives you the entire timetable to detail as to what happened that day. And if you don't want to spend that much time on it, I'll leave a link to a documentary below. It's a BBC special. Take a look at that. It's really, really well done, and it'll give you the whole breadth of what you need to know going into the movie. I say watch that before going to see the movie because you enjoy it more. Otherwise, you're just going to be more engrossed in the characters themselves and wondering who they are and what they're doing, and it's going to be confusing so much. But the good thing is there's a lot of action, and the set pieces are really, really well done. The fact that this computer animation age we're in now allows big things to be on the screen, many ships, rockets, explosions, shaft, all that stuff. So it's cool to look at. But really, at the core of this movie, aside from all that, it's the heroics of the main characters. It has a good cast, a nice young cast mixed in with some old veterans like Dennis Quaid, Woody Harrelson, and Aaron Eckhart, as long as some newer actors like Ed Skrein, Luke Evans, Patrick Wilson, and even Nick Jonas. So the film does a really good job of keeping the characters low-key, such that you're not pulled away from the movie because you're seeing an actor that you know and recognize. And so the stakes in the movie, what the characters go through, you really feel it because you don't know who's going to live and who's going to die. And so with that, I find the movie really, really compelling and fun to watch. So for Midway, for story, I'm going to give it a 6. Simply because, again before, the exposition in the film could have been more there in front. It's not. It sacrifices that for action and assuming that you're coming into this with a basic knowledge of the war, tactics, the battle itself, and so forth. So with that, it makes it a little bit hard to follow. And this has been done a little bit better before with the 1976 version, which is really, really good from a timeline standpoint. But this movie does a lot better job at really portraying a lot of the heroics and the squadron that did the actual dive bombing to take out the carriers. So a 6 for story. For the emotional impact for Midway, I'm going to give it a 7, mainly because the action sequences are so well done. The color correction on it looks like an old documentary. That was a nice touch. The score does a good job of kind of keeping that moving, the emotion moving, and the character development could be done a little bit better. But overall, you understand that these are kids that are just trying to survive and trying to do what's best for, their crew and serve their country. And so with that pulls you in because you understand these people are just trying to do the best they can with a hard situation. At the same time, be there for their comrades, right? And be there for their country. And that really is what this movie is about. It's about the courage that it took to do what these gentlemen did. And that in and of itself deserves a 7 in my book. So for me, when it comes down to the intangibles for this film, I have to break it down to two categories. Number one is going to be its authenticity and accuracy for history. And also it's going to be the emotion that's able to draw out from all of that. The patriotism that comes out of all that. And that's something that's very, very refreshing and really, unfortunately, not that popular right now in America, where you can actually sit back and love America and put it on screen. But in this film, they do just that. And they do it in a way that I think is real and I think it's authentic. Because the people who are fighting this war are fighting, number one, for themselves. They're fighting for each other, okay? And that's typically how it is in war, right? You're fighting next to the person next to you. The country and all of that is there, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're fighting to save your brother. He's trying to save you, and that's portrayed very, very well here. And number two, the fact that the patriotism that just comes out of this film is something that is so unique now and so refreshing that I have to give it a higher score in this area. So for the category of watchability, I'm going to give Midway an 8 because for me, I am going to have to go back to see this several times because number one, I like it. And number two, to catch up on the things that I missed. I've been studying this battle for a few years, not so heavily that I'm an expert, far from it, but I know enough. And when I saw the film and saw some things, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that happened. I looked it up and realized, oh, it did happen. Okay, cool. And again, because the exposition is not quite there, you kind of have to watch it to kind of see what you missed. So the negative in the part of the movie in terms of the story is actually a positive in this area, making you want to go back and see it. So I'm going to give this an 8 for watchability. So my overall rating of the film is going to be a 7. It didn't wow me, but it was intriguing enough. And I think the overall pieces that go with this movie, with the watchability, the intangibles, it's going to bring this up to a respectable level. So 7 here. I think the original 1976 version is about the same for different reasons. I think the 1976 version was a little bit too hokey, but it does do a better job at giving you the exposition. It does do a better job at giving you the tactics. But for some people, that's just not going to be something you want to see. So this is the action piece, part of that. So if you were to combine the films together, then you probably would have a perfect film. You can't do that. So for this case, I'm going to give both films, 76 and this particular version, a 7 from overall rating. So now we're on to my conservative take, where I talk about the movie in detail. But really, this movie is a history lesson, which has already been spelled out. So if you know anything about the movie, you've already been spoiled. Okay? So that being said, from a conservative take standpoint, this movie is definitely a go. The movie's great. It's a pro-America, pro-camaraderie, pro-friendship, pro-family. It's a movie that you can watch with your kids. There's one F-bomb. It's a PG-13 film, so you get one F-bomb per PG-13 film. So it's done in a way that I think is fantastic, actually. If you're going to drop an F-bomb in a movie, this is the way to do it. And when you see it, you know what I'm talking about. So I won't even spoil it for you here because there's no point in me spoiling that for you. Just enjoy that when you see it. And there's tragedy in here. They don't do a really good job of really getting you to like a lot of the characters. They try to, but the way the movie goes with this pacing, it's very fast, extremely fast. In fact, there's pretty much the introduction where we talk about the Japan goals with Yamato, what he's telling the American representative who came to Japan to say, hey, we know that you guys are trying to, imperialize that part of the world, Southeast Asia, and what's going on with that. And he's like, look, we're trying to expand. We get our oil from you. Don't mess us up, because if we do that, we're going to go to war. But outside of that one scene, it goes into straight action all the way into Pearl Harbor and so forth. So the movie has pacing all the way through. There's very few dull moments at it, but it sacrifices the exposition again and sacrifices any character development. So when the characters actually have an issue or they are in trouble, you don't really feel it as much. So the emotional impact really comes from other areas. And so, I'm trying to give the picky parts on this thing, but really the key thing to know is that this film is a family film for the most part. I mean, there's not even any blood, really. It's just, people are killed, but you don't see anything graphic so much. It's just the horror of being thrown into a situation where hundreds of thousands of bullets are coming at you, rockets, explosions, and so forth. and the tragedy of losing people. And so that is part of it if you want to take your family. But with the right kind of approach to your kids, I think they could definitely deal with it depending on how old they are and how mature they are. I think you can take this with other films like the original 76 version, some documentaries, throw this in there and start to dive deeply into this movie because it is a historic piece which is so complicated. And they try to do that as they take you down into submarines, they take you into cockpits, they take you on aircraft carriers, they take you into situation rooms, intelligence breakdowns with the code breakers. So much stuff going on in this film. It can be overwhelming, and so for some people it may not be that exciting and if you want to know everything, but if you just want to see eye candy on the screen and see heroics and just see a really, really strong performances across the board and determination of trying to protect America, that the stakes are very, very high. And the movie does talk about that, which is important because a lot of people don't understand that, this battle's happened so far off. What's the impact here in America? Well, if Midway goes south, if America loses it, then all of a sudden the entire western coast of America is vulnerable. We probably lose Hawaii, and it just would have been a nightmare. And so, again, from our conservative take, go check it out. It's a go. It's a good film. I recommend it. And so for my final take, I give Midway a 14.25, which translates to 3 stars and a go for seeing this film as my conservative take. I think it's a wonderful film. It's not going to overly wow you if you are a film critic. However, if you're just a popcorn kind of person, you kind of want to learn about history and you want to see a film that's going to be accurate, it's not going to be diving into social justice warrior or identity politics crap, you're going to want to see this film because it's really refreshing to see films like this nowadays. It's a throwback of sorts to eras when these kind of films were commonplace, where you could actually talk about America, be proud of America, and not be ashamed of America, and not have America be denigrated on screen for you. This film is not one of those films. It is a film that absolutely honors the veterans that fought this battle and any battle in American history, because ultimately it's going to be for all Americans who have fought. And on Veterans Day, with this film debuted on the weekend, it to me is a perfect addition to any World War II library. And so with that, the big question is this: did you see Midway? Do you want to see it? What's your thoughts on it? Do you think it could have been a little bit better done? Do you think it should have been less of the action or more of a tactics and kind of decision making? Because a lot of things happen in the Battle of Midway that went down that this film doesn't quite cover because there just isn't enough time. But studying the battle is really fascinating because you realize how fortunate America was to come out with a victory. And so let me know in your thoughts. So with that, if you like the content on this channel where I take culture, TV, movies, and I filter it right, please click like and subscribe and share with your friends. And as always, please check out some content that I have right here.